Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We have all of the board and Robert joining us today. Are there any oral communications?
None.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to the next item, approval of minutes.
I move to approve.
Second. I'm going to open the voting. Approved 5-0.
Great, thanks. Next, we'll move on to current business. We have an update from the city of Escondido. This will be by Robert.
Thank you. I just have two updates for today. The first update has to do with the library mural. In conversations with the public art administrator as well as our project manager, Ed, it appears as though we are likely going to be starting that mural sometime in November or December. So we're very happy about that, and the goal is to be able to get that mural up and on the building prior to the opening of the redeveloped or redesigned library. Ed, do you have any comments on that one particularly? No, I do not. Okay. And then my other one I wanted to share is this is the color selection board that we're going to be using for the library for the fixtures and everything, and that's why Ed is up here. So I wanted to kind of pass this down and share, be able to share this with everybody. You can see what the content of the what's sometimes referred to as a mood board. So you can kind of see the different design elements that we're going to be using as far as the colors and whatnot as well. So, and Ed, did you?
As the color board is going through everybody and you're taking a look, you'll notice that there's some carpet colors. Some of these are accent colors that are going to be placed on the walls. Some of these are paint that are the walls are going to be painted. Some are features like the wood paneling is more of a backdrop that's going to happen within the library as well. We are working on putting together renderings. Once we have those, these will make a lot more sense. But at least this is the initial color palette and carpet selection that you can kind of take a look and get an idea of the soft colors that are going within the library.
Sorry, I'm seeing 4 different kinds of carpet.
It's one carpet tile that has varying different colors. I think there might be, if I'm not mistaken, 2 different carpets there. Most of the library is going to use the bigger piece where you see the different patterns. Yes.
Okay.
And we're working, that's why the colors are going to be worked off of that are the contrast is going to be similar. You could probably find the grays, the light blues, right within that.
And this one goes where?
That's going to be the flooring.
This you got a different piece here on the.
I can't.
It's the one with the blue stripe in it.
So again, that would make more sense in the renderings once we get them, because there are different areas that are going to get different color carpets just to provide a better contrast in the areas and define the rooms better, or the spaces to define the spaces better. Some are going to be kind of defined with squares, and it'll give you like the lounge area or the reading area or the reading rooms, areas like that. Again, I know this is just a color palette. We are working on the renderings. Once we have those, they will make a lot more sense to see those.
And we are anticipating having renderings ready and available for you in the October meeting. So you'll be able to see a lot more clearly. I wanted to share with you what those color palettes look like first, prior to the actual renderings that are going to be up and ready for you to be able to see in October.
I just want to confirm, so these have been decided on, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
This was decided. Reno sat in these conversations, original pre-design, and kind of selected. Actually, you selected the final. A lot of the final colors were selected collectively between staff and Reno staff and our architect. So, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll mention to John's question, that farthest left, from what I understand, that one's gonna be like an accent carpet to highlight those areas where we want more people. So I think like the central area, whereas like the more gray heavy one is just the general covering for most of the
Correct.
spaces.
Right.
And you might say, why so much gray? It's easier to keep clean.
And hide the tracking of dirt coming in the library as well, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item would be the Library Trust Fund.
Can I ask a question before we
Yeah.
move on? Is there any other updates on the remodel? Can we just have like a quick snapshot of how things are going?
Sure. We are still on track. I don't have a presentation today only because we're still on the same scope of work as before. We are making progress. Quick update on the sewer. All sewer inspections passed this week, so that has been covered back up. We are working on the concrete placement, which will take place next week. Once that concrete placement is put back for the footings, foundations, then we can move full board with the framing. We had to stop framing for now because we weren't able to do that, obviously with the concrete being missing. We haven't ran into major issues other than other items that we knew we were going to have to address, like the water main, and now we do have an item with the fire hydrant, missing fire hydrant, let's say, and lack of appropriate fire protection. The building was protected by fire, but it doesn't meet current codes. So that's kind of another pivot and adjustment we've had to make. Working with staff, water department, working with the fire department, working with all the departments involved to get that work probably completed within the next 2 weeks. Let's see, electrical is ongoing. The roof is probably almost complete. The tile roof portion of it, I would say they're about 80% complete. I would expect by the end of next week, they'll be done with the tile portion and move over into the alcove areas of the roof, the little kind of window areas. They'll move into those areas, start ripping everything out of there. They have not wanted to start all that all at once just because of weather. We never know if something comes in. I think we had a small rain last week where they had to cover everything up, so they're just doing it in sections. They're also working on the RTU, which is the roof mounted units for the HVAC. Those have been worked out. They're framing, they're redoing the roof up in that area. They're framing for the new units to be accepted by the structural membranes that are up there. So that's also moving along as well. This week they'll complete cleaning all the duct work, so that's been ongoing since kind of last time we spoke. Slow, tedious process. They're cleaning every duct work within that city, so it's going to be completely almost brand new system. It is going to be a brand new system in there. Electrical adjustments are ongoing as well. There's some changes we've had to make, adjustments we've had to make to be able to receive the new units upstairs. We're working on that as well. So yes, it's an ongoing construction, just varying degrees of trades working all at the same time. So.
Okay, thank you. And last month or two ago, we met with the community members about unfunded items, and it was around now that you were going to expect like a more detailed list that we could share with the foundation and Friends of the Library. Are we ready to coordinate another meeting?
We are, and that was going to be an upcoming question. We don't have the specifics for the second floor just yet, but we are asking for the board to decide if we can host a workshop the week of September 22nd, so it'll be September 22nd through the 26th.
And we should have the second floor items by then?
That is what I've been told. Yes.
Okay. Okay, awesome. I'll go ahead and work with you to schedule that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, now we can move on to the Library Trust Fund for quarter 4. That'd be presented by Reno.
I'm not sure if my mic is working. That's
Was it not? But you just said no.
1, 2, 3. The acoustics are working. I'm not sure if the mic is.
Is it sound? Is it better?
1, maybe here. There. Great. Okay. Again, I am not city finance, but I will give an update on the trust. As you can see, the balance currently is at 38,000 approximately, with the recent ads from trust dividends, around 2,000 there. Most of our revenue is coming from the investment earnings, a little bit from library sales as is usual, and then reimbursement here from Scenic. Scenic is one of the providers of our internet access, so it's a reimbursement from a Scenic grant. So the city spends and receives funding from Scenic in order to provide new and updated equipment for internet connection, both at the main library and at our mall location. Most of it at the main library. So those are our revenues. Spending, we didn't have much other than what has already been spent, which was 7,000, which is actually 2 expenditures last year and this year's literacy appreciation dinner and event, so that we for both of those events catering. And then youth services library, that budget, that was 20,000 that was spent as a matching component to the Play for All grant, which is what funded the play elements in the children's section of the library. And we currently still have some play elements here. Beyond that, currently, you can see here included in the total, it's not really delineated, but we do have the donation of $256,000 that the city received. So currently, the available balance is $632,000 as far as the trust is concerned. The second page kind of breaks down some of the account expenditures and balances, but the real number we're looking at as far as available is here at the bottom, the 632 figure.
Okay, I am getting on in years, but I'm noticing these two things on the first page, excuse me, that up until a couple of months ago, I never remember hearing about them. And one is that we were using trust funds for the literacy dinners. That has never been, since I've been on the board in 2018, I don't remember that happening until I saw this number at on the last report.
To clarify, these were budgets that have already been approved by the board. I'm not quite sure when, but they were decided to be approved for these specific uses. So the NIHOP donation, library technology, literacy projects, Pioneer Room, e-services, and Ryan, those were voted on and approved by the board, not perhaps this board, but the board at some time. And so Robert approved some of these.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is this one and the youth services expenditure, those have to go back, I don't know how many years. So I'd like to understand when they were approved and for what amounts they were approved.
That I would have to double check for you. I do remember bringing the Play for All matching to the board, that 20,000. But because it had already been approved, it was not put to a vote, is my understanding of how the mechanisms work. Robert, do you have any clarifying?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any additional clarifying answers for you, other than to say that we can go back to our finance department and dive a lot deeper into this to be able to get you those answers to your questions.
Sure, because I'd like to know how much was originally approved to spend, because I see a couple of thousand a year. I don't know how far back you'll have to go, but I'd just like to get some detail on what was done and how it was done.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That's a completely fair assessment, and more than happy to do that for you.
Okay.
We can have that, depending on how deep we have to go, we can have that ready as early as the October meeting for you.
Sounds great, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns?
No, I think that's all. Thank you, Reno. Next item, we have authorization to use library trust funds for FF&E for library infrastructure. This is going to be Reno, Ed, and Robert.
I'll provide the overview. So this is an updated request from one we took a few months ago. Essentially, we are seeking your approval for $255,000, which is less than the donation we received from the Felix family. These are based on the quote we received from GM, our furniture vendor. As of right now, we are still waiting an updated quote from GM, but they've assured me that they can get us to less than $255,000. You can see the breakdown of what this $255,000 entails in the attachment that follows, the spreadsheet. You can see broken down. We've broken it down between public and staff expenditure areas. So for the public, it's all the public furniture, tables, seating, etc. That make up the various areas in the new updated layout for the first floor. Again, this is only for the first floor FF&E. For public, it's around $200,000, $195,000 and change. And then the staff areas are a little bit less than $10,000, with most of that just being desks. So additional desks that needed following the move. A lot of those desks were not usable anymore. Sales tax factors in around $16,000, given these numbers, with the contingency of about 15% being $30,000 for a grand total of around $251. We're asking for $255 to give us a little bit more room, just because these are not current figures. These are based on the March numbers that I had from GM. But they've assured us that they can get us to the same number with some changes for likes. So at this point, we are asking and recommending for your approval of this use of the library trust fund. Do you have any questions for either myself, Robert, or Ken?
Okay, I'm looking at numbers that don't jive with the numbers we've received previously by over $50,000. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
It should be less than what you would have seen before. You might be remembering the pods. So the study pods are no longer in the scope of the FF&E, as we are aiming to have those built in rather than purchased separately. So that would have been around the $50,000 to $80,000 amount that you might be remembering.
No, I'm saying that it's more by $50,000, not less.
Actually, my recollection of the numbers for the first floor were actually around 256,000. So we've been working at bring that down as much as we can, and this is pretty accurate from our last conversation that we had with GM and our architect. So.
Yeah. So what's been added? Okay, we were at, okay, let's assume Virginia just enlightened me. So the top line is 195,277. So a number in that range was what is in my mind. Where did this other stuff come from? I don't remember open seating and all that being worth that much money.
The only thing I can imagine is not the inclusion of the sales and contingency, because that roughly is $45,000. That would be my only thought of what could possibly happen. The only additions here was the addition of approximately 6 desks at around $900 a piece, for a total of around $6,000. Those were the additions from the last breakdown you would have seen.
Okay, so if you won a 15% contingency, why was this never mentioned before?
We did include contingency from the beginning in the project, including the project and the furniture, the FF&E. Contingency was always factored in only because we were so far out from actually being able to purchase the equipment that we wanted to make sure that we had the wiggle room in there. Now, again, the contingency is for that purpose exactly that we may or may not use it, most likely may not use the contingency, and the number is going to be lower than this. Maybe that's where we're looking at the difference in funding or numbers.
Well, I'm just one of five, but I spent a lot of years in procurement, and when I was given a budget, it was never had a contingency in it. I had money to spend, and I had no more, so I made it work.
I think, and for such fixed things, I think might be part of what John's talking about, because it is furniture. Can you maybe expand on what could possibly fall under contingency, since here it's really fixed quantity, items, tables, et cetera, so we can.
So we typically include contingencies in a project just to make sure, like in our case with the construction, right? Unforeseen items, we'll put a 15 or 20% contingency amount in there that we have for change orders, essentially, or potentially a change order. In this case, we added a contingency because of the price increases from when we started this process back in January. And we wanted to make sure that we provided numbers that were going to make sense when we got closer to it. In this case, the vendor did suggest adding a 50% contingency for price increases down the year. And that's why we're kind of working hard to get this purchase order in before the end of the year. That way there is not another price increase, and then we will have to dip into the contingency. As of right now, I don't see that we will have to use a contingency, but that's the main purpose of it. Is going to be for the price increases that may happen.
To clarify, Ed, some of this too was with concerns regarding to the tariff increases that were envisioned. Additionally, from what I understand, anything that isn't spent doesn't go to the vendor. It can be returned to the trust fund, correct?
Right, that is correct. So any unspent money, if we come in lower, if we come in at 200 or 210 or 212 final number, the remaining balance will go back to the trust or to the fund.
Okay, so a couple of questions. So this is on the first floor only for furniture. Do you anticipate any other request to cover anything else from the trust fund in the future?
We will likely come to you after the workshop for additional unfunded items for the second floor, with the exception of whatever our other support groups choose to support. As we've mentioned in some of the workshops, the foundation has shown interest in supporting the FF&E for the children's space. But beyond that, we would have to return to the board to request for anything else that isn't covered by our support groups, like the foundation or the Friends.
Okay. And part of that was the literacy, to cover some literacy expenses too. So that could be anywhere from another $20,000 to $70,000, I believe.
We don't have numbers from the vendor GM right now, but early estimates will put that between 20 to 80,000.
Okay. So we're
Yeah, the number I think we saw last time was 71,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
around that ballpark, correct.
So we're looking at potentially using about $350,000 from the trust fund in total.
That is one estimate to use, yes, that's what I would say, that would be the baseline.
Okay, and then what about equipment for conference rooms, or is that like something at the end that we'll have to talk about too?
That will be something that is separate from, say, the furniture and what we're discussing right now. We do believe, and the Friends of the Library have shown more of an interest in supporting the purchase of equipment
sounds good, thank you.
Can you remind me what the timeline is for placing this order?
And do you have a better idea of that?
So we are looking at placing orders late November, early December to have delivery scheduled for end of March.
Late December, I'm sorry.
So what is the problem with replacing an order now for delivery in March?
Unfortunately, we cannot place that order now until we actually have the funding. So the way that it works is that you have to approve the funding through the trust fund. Then from there, it does have to go to City Council for a budget approval. For tonight's FF&E items, that is set for October 1st in front of the City Council. For your October meeting that we're anticipating for your second floor items, which will be your October 9th meeting, that City Council date is set for November 5th. So there is a certain process that we do have to go through, and it does have to be approved through the City Council for a budget adjustment. Hence why we cannot place that order now, and we do have to wait until the end of November to start placing that order.
Okay, that's good to know, but when we started this process back in the spring or summer, we were told you wanted to place purchase orders by September 1st.
That's correct. That would have been ideal, but we also had more time knowing that if we're going to be receiving the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, when we are going to open back up in April, there's no reason to have that furniture on site because we can't store it on site prior to moving into the facility once everything is completed. So the March timeframe is actually the ideal timeframe for us for delivery.
I'm not arguing the delivery date, Robert. I'm arguing when the order should have been placed.
We are still in a timeframe that will allow us to have the delivery for the March timeframe.
Okay, but by the process we're going through, the longer we wait to place the order, the more likelihood of price increases there are.
That is accurate.
Then I do want to clarify, I did pull up one of the prior agenda packets, and I do see the 256 figure with the contingency built in. I believe this was the April meeting, in case any of the other board members want to reference that. Do you have any other questions?
Just a quick question, because in the past meetings, we had talked about the ceiling donation and the significant size to it. If these funds are used for this purpose, will there be a way to recognize that donation?
I believe so. Robert might have another recommendation, but I believe it'd be very simple for us to name one of the rooms or whatever the board recommends be named. I believe the city has some policy and procedure as far as naming, but that would be up to you to decide, of course, how much of the fund you spend and how you direct it is up to you.
The city does have a naming policy. I'm not as familiar with that naming policy right now. We can definitely get that to you for you to be able to see. But we can work with that if that is something you would choose to do, is to name a specific room or simply have a plaque or something along those lines up.
Thanks.
Would it be acceptable to, you need our approval today on this, correct? Would it be acceptable to motion to approve to purchase the items listed on what is provided today in item number 4 only, with that grand total, and anything else gets put back into the trust fund that's not used? And I say that because if there was extra money that was left over, it's not to be purchased for other equipment that wasn't presented to us today. Is that acceptable?
My only caution would be that since I don't have the updated information from the vendor, some models might change. What they are, say a chair is going to be a chair, it's just the specific name might be different. So I would caution about being super specific because it might force us to pay more for a specific item rather than a like for a like is one thing I'm a little concerned about.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. I'm not thinking like a person that's mired in the rules and regulations of city procurement. Nothing personal, but you guys have a lot of rules that the rest of the world doesn't have. I'm all for approving the 204,000 with the sales tax. You've got it at 7 3/4. It's 8 3/4 now.
So that's actually, it's based on the, not our sales tax, it's based on the sales tax for that specific location. And their location is only 7 3/4.
Great. Okay, I'm good for spending that, but I'm having a hard time with this contingency. If it turns out that you need more money to buy the things that have already been identified to be sourced, get what you can and come back with a request for more. I'm sure that can all take place before the library opens.
So just to clarify, it would be for 220,000 essentially.
Yeah, whatever it is without $30,705.70. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Robert, the reason it has to go through city council approval, is it because it's a large sum or any of our expenditures would need to be approved by them regardless?
So in speaking with the finance director, all of the expenses would have to go through city council because it's considered a budget adjustment. And so the city council has control over the accounts that concern the city.
Got it, okay.
I guess that's to make sure we don't buy a yacht or something.
I mean, the contingency sounds like it's pretty standard practice. Would we be able to vote today? Yes or no on the whole budget?
I have a question, maybe Robert could help clarify this, but as I'm listening to the conversation, contingencies usually give us a wiggle room, right? In case there is a price increase and we have to make adjustments, we have that dollar amount that we can go up another $2,000, $3,000. I guess the question for Robert is, in this case, if we do not include the contingency and we do exceed by 3, 4, 5,000, or let's say in the worst case scenario, there's a $20,000 increase, do we then have to come back through this process and go to council again and ask them to approve a change order for $30,000?
That would be correct.
Right. So then that would probably push us into delaying placing an order if we can't fully fund it initially. That would be my caution against not approving as we're presenting. It's just going to hinder the process a little bit.
Yeah, and we've talked in past months about the potential for price increases. So the contingency has been kind of on our radar and the thought of around price increases.
I think one of the points that staff is trying to make in this area is that the contingency is just that. It's a contingency. It's a if we need it. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in that when we need it. In listening to Ed talk about this, it does not sound like the contingency likely is going to be used, but it gives us that ability for flexibility in this scenario. So what would happen is you would approve the full 255. In that, if we do not use that $30,000 contingency, that $30,000 does go back to the trust. And then you would be able to use that or reallocate that to something else that is important for you, whether it is one of the programming aspects or if we come up with some additional requirements as far as the technology or second floor items.
Robert, one question for you, and just kind of posing it to the team, to the board. If you, and also Ed, if we were to make the purchase before the next board meeting, or can we make the purchase before the next board meeting? I don't think so. The point I'm trying to think is if we wanted to add on to the second floor, the contingency or something similar. We do have the other vote, and we'll likely come back to review for the second floor. So we could do something there, but I think it is muddying the steps and complicating the purchase if we delay.
So I think the challenge is that once it's voted on tonight by the Board of Trustees, it then must go to City Council. Right now, the date for City Council is set for October 1st. The next meeting for the Board of Trustees is October 9th. We would not be able to make that purchase in that very short window to be able to move that forward. So you're looking at a very tight time frame there.
Wasn't the second floor going to be on a separate council vote and a separate, it was a month behind this?
It is, correct. So, but I would assume the anticipation is that once everything is approved by the city council, and even though we won't be able to maybe get it within that short window before your next board meeting, by the November board meeting, those items could be purchased through a purchase order.
Okay, because what Reno basically said is if he didn't get the contingency and he needed more money to complete the purchase for the items on the first floor, we could add it to the second floor purchase.
That is potentially an option. I think so.
I'd go for that.
That is a possible option for you to be able to consider. We might have a more clarity on the first floor FF&E items when we're ready to pull this trigger. But again, that's a very short window for us for in that kind of that 8-day period of time. And I think, as John mentioned, the red tape of city processes does not always work that quickly.
So if we approve this full funding with the 15% contingency, based on how all of these timelines work, and then the second floor FF&E proposal comes before us, one, I'm going on the assumption that that may also have its own contingency, right? So another 30% on top of the numbers. And do you recall if the numbers we received last time, if these figures include that contingency or not?
I will say that the figures we presented at the public meeting were rough estimates based on market prices, so they did not include, say, any discount from a cooperative purchasing agreement like what we see with these prices today. So it might be less, but I can't say for sure it'll be less. I just know it's in that range. That's why we're waiting for GM for the next workshop to give us actual numbers for the second floor.
But but when I'm referencing these numbers, should I assume that's just the item cost,
Yes.
not inclusive of sales tax and the contingency?
Correct.
Okay. And again, if we approve a contingency now, I'm not sure, is finance going to see this approval as strictly for the first floor, or would we have the ability to be able to shift some of that 15% over to the second floor and either reduce the contingency percentage for the second floor?
I'm not totally certain about that. I think I know where you're going, but it would just be a matter of wording it properly so that it would allow us to be able to do what you're proposing.
Okay.
But I would have to check on that.
Yeah, because I know finance can.
Yeah, they're very specific.
Yeah.
They're numbers people.
Yeah, and I think I would want to go towards some of that flexibility so that we're not approving a lump sum and a contingency in one floor and then an additional contingency in another.
I think I understand that, yeah. But again, I think I would need to check. But unfortunately, can't check now, I mean, where we're at, so.
Any final questions? Okay. So I think what's next is we have to do we have to do a motion to vote on this?
Yeah, you guys are going to motion.
Okay. If we want to vote, we'd have to do a motion to vote on approving. Oh, that's great.
I would prefer to vote with the contingency.
I think so. And then second floor is to be decided. Is anybody going to make a motion?
If you want to make the
Motion
with-
to vote with the contingency.
To clarify, what is the amount?
I was going to just clarify.
It would be the 250. There's 256.
251.
Would be 251 and change?
Yes, the 251, 274, and 99 cents.
Okay, is that- we had rounded up for the staff report, but I just want to clarify which amount.
The 251, you said 274? Is that what it was?
251, 274, 99 cents.
Oh, okay. So would you say that in his motion? He motioned it, yeah. So you would read out what's in item number 4, so motion to request the library.
I'm noticing it says 256 on one page, and then the other page says 251.
Be on page 3.
Oh, you might be looking at the CELIC donation, which is 56.
Oh, got it. Okay, never mind.
The estimated total, not rounding,
Oh, I see.
is 251, 274, and 99 cents. Which you may vote to do a slightly different amount, round up, or exact.
All right. Motion to approve the authorization to use library trust funds for furniture, fixtures, equipment for library infrastructure project first floor, $251,000 and change. You need the exact number?
No, I put it.
Okay.
Second.
I'm going to open the voting. Okay. And it's approved 4-0. Trustee Schwab is abstaining.
Okay, now we'll be moving to the next item, library collections budget, and that would be Reno.
This is one where I do know all the budgets. So in today's presentation, I've divided our collection budget between, just for comparison's sake, last year, fiscal year 2024-25, and then our current budget, 25-26. In the middle is what we call the budget based on circulation. Essentially, this is if we were just to take the percentage of that collection circulation and apply for the percentage of the budget, if it's 250,000, what does that translate to? Just so that you know, the middle one is not a hard and fast rule that we follow. It is a guideline, and it's tweaked based on what we know are current trends of what the public is checking out, what they're not checking out, as well as future plans, such as space planning, reading, et cetera. Again, our budget has stayed at 250,000. Changes between last year and this year that are notable. You'll notice a slight dip in the adult print. This is mostly coming through on the Spanish items. We've purchased quite a bit in my goal to replenish the Spanish collections and refurbish them. They had been they hadn't been really purchased for in a number of years, so we did increase the budget last year for Spanish across the board, and we are now pulling back a little bit to more closely align with the percentage of Again, this is reflective of the fact that children's materials continue to be very popular as far as checkouts go, with children's picture books alone matching and exceeding adult fiction. Teen fiction, essentially unchanged. Search trends continue to be about the same. DVDs, again, our overall expenditure remained essentially flat there. Periodicals have decreased, mostly because we've had to trim our periodicals as certain titles have greatly increased in price from last year, especially newspapers. And in order to maintain our core newspaper collection, which includes staples such as Los Angeles Times, San Diego Tribune, Times Advocate, New York Times, and Wall Street Journal, those five eat up the bulk of our periodicals budget, and those newspaper prices keep increasing, so we have had to trim elsewhere. You also note that we don't have processing supplies in that listed anymore. Last but not least, databases. Our database allocation is essentially the same. We compressed some budget, so what you'll see listed on the left, you'll see more overdrive than you see on the right. We combine our ebook and e-audiobook for adults into one singular budget, which is more of a practical change for staff to better be able to track that spending than it is really a change in the total amount. If you're wondering what discretionary is, discretionary spending is an allotment that we provide for our staff here at the local level. As a reminder, the majority of our collection purchasing is done centrally through LS&S collections management team. So that's where the bulk of those budgets are allocated. It's around 80% LS&S central and 20% local. And the local discretionary allows us to quickly purchase items that are requested by the public, for areas that staff identify needing replacements or extra attention, we use this discretionary, as well as additional copies that are requested beyond what we standard purchase through collections management. I'll also note at the very bottom, you'll see the grand totals, 238 and 233. You might be wondering what happens to the rest of the money if our collections budget is 250. Why is it only 253? That is usually eaten up by processing costs and vendor costs. So the cost of getting the books barcoded, spine labels added, any other extra RFIDs, all that is taken up. If it's not used, so let's say if the estimate is 23,000 or 27,000 goes towards that. If we don't hit that, say the vendor's purchase less, then it goes back into the collections that we finish off the spending at the end of the year. So no money is ever wasted. It all goes towards the collections, one way or the other. Are there any questions or concerns? Anything you'd like me to review more closely on the collection budget?
Reno, the Hoopla budget of 18,000 versus current year 15,000. Does that is that with the exact same parameters we're using now?
Yes. That's same thing, same cap. What's happening with Hoopla is we were able to increase the cap by about $50 a month, which translates to about an extra 20 or so downloads per day. So it's not a lot, but I did want to try to give Hoopla a little bit more funding to try to ease the frustrations from the public when they hit that cap around a little bit later midday, around like 2 after the first week. And we're seeing if that does improve the experience, but honestly, Hoopla's budget and the costs continue to increase, at least from the Hoopla side. We are essentially just limited to the number of downloads per day and per month, with these slight increases just keeping us on par with where we were. Does that
Okay.
answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I don't know if this is a question for Reno or maybe Robert, but do we have a metric around like the cost per citizen connected to the library?
sense. There are industry standards as far as the recommended, per capita expenditure in libraries. Off the top of my head, I don't remember it, but I can certainly find it and share it with the board.
Well, you did an analysis a couple of months ago that had per capita in it.
Yes.
And I don't have that in front of me either, but it showed us we were way below average, way below. Not 5%, 10%, but like 25, 30% below average.
If memory serves, and don't quote me necessarily, but the national average is around $4 per capita. In the state, it varies. Some of our neighbors spend upwards of $7 per capita. Coronado spends a lot more. Theirs is supposed to go $20 per capita. And then there's other places that are more aligned with where we're at. We're about $3.50 is what my memory tells me. But again, I'd have to pull the past report to get you the exact numbers. But there are, essentially, we can divide our collections budget by the population, and we can look at per capita spending that way and compare it across our peers.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know that number to see where this potential ask could go, and then also understand the average. Just would be helpful to understand that.
Yeah, I could certainly pull up an updated peer review of what the nearby libraries are spending and what the national average is compared to what we're spending right now. I believe the population is still 150, around 150.
The one I saw a couple of months ago would probably do. I can't think things have changed that much and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's essentially the same.
save you a little time.
Yes, so I'll resend that out to everyone following this meeting.
Do you have any other questions? Okay. Next, we'll move on to impact of a flat budget, collections budget by Reno.
Could I add just one more thing? What you did last year with the budget, I thought was phenomenal. You basically went back to zero-based budgeting and built everything up from the ground and looked at things, not just, hey, this is what we spent last year, we'll spend this much this year. And this appears to be a positive continuation of that, and thank you.
Great. Impact of a flat collections budget by Reno again.
So this report was requested by board member Schwab, and so I'll provide a quick overview and I'll open the floor to questions. Essentially, the goal was to show what was the collection budget history, to give us some context. It was also a great learning experience for me to learn what the library's budget was before I arrived. So I have to thank a lot of the hard work that prior library administrations did, especially around the 2008 period, which is where I saw a lot of reports going in to figure out what the best budget would have been back then. So that saved me a lot of work. But essentially, as we all know, the collection budget has been flat since around 2017, when Library Systems and Services took on management of the library. The majority, currently, all the funds come from the city's capital improvement projects, or CIP budget, which is sourced from those public facilities fees. So these are essentially development fees paid by new developers and are meant to offset the cost of either new residences and businesses and the people they would bring in to then support city services. That's the goal, and that's where our funding comes from. Of course, since 2017, the purchasing power of that $250,000 has eroded as inflation and other costs have impacted both the economy and our ability to purchase. The numbers for the budget that I present later on in the report do not include sales tax, shipping, or processing. I did not have that granular level to say whether it was included or not, but in most cases we don't know. I'm including that, I'm not capturing that. I also mentioned that given the fact that we have a limited budget, staff from all, and since we've had the budget, we try to make the most we can of that budget. So when we are allocating the funds longevity between those two copies. So those types of choices aren't reflected in the numbers we see. Digital costs continue to be a structural pressure. As we know through our prior discussions of hoopla, digital costs continue to increase, both because that is what they allow for, and also because that is the trend in the market. And we'll go into some detail about specifics in just a bit, but essentially we've seen the greatest increase in a lot of our digital items year over year as compared to our physical items, especially when it comes to e-audio and popular e-audio and e-book items. The request for today's report by John was what we could do with an increase of about 4,000 per month, which equates to about 48,000. I've rounded up to 50,000 per year for quicker and easier math. And so what could we do with that? Essentially, we would be focusing primarily on the most popular collections and those collections that need the most attention as far as replacement due to wear and tear. So these are usually our popular adult materials, so fiction, mystery, of course all the new items, and children's materials, particularly our picture books, early readers, and board books, which get a lot of wear and tear. For a quick budget context, I'm not going to go over all of it, but just know that we've had several eras for the collection. What we call like the pre-internet age, so early 90s, we could see very substantial budgets for the library, and that reflects the fact that the way people consumed and used information was very different in the early 90s, and of course before that. So it made sense for the library's budget to be reflective of that, so we do see a higher number there. During the period following that, so early internet and then pre-financial crisis in 2008, we averaged around 450,000 as far as the collection expenditures were. Then, due to the financial crisis, there was a series of cuts that were needed at the time. And so that led us to a budget that's closer to where we are now, in the 250 range. And then since Allison took over, we stayed at around that post-financial crisis budget line around 250 since then. Things to know as far as cost pressures on the core collections. We did the math based on our catalog records. So each item in the catalog has a purchase price when it was added. So I used those as a good estimator for the cost per year per collection item. That's an average. Based on that, we saw that since Allison has took over, adult fiction, nonfiction have more than 20% gone up in price. The increase has been more than 20%, 27 and nearly 20%. Children's books, I was surprised and happy to see, have not increased as much, roughly around 5% each, with the exception of books for our earliest readers, which also happen to be the ones that get a lot of use and a lot of wear and tear. And those are our board books, which have increased in price by 20%. And the early readers was a bit shocking to me. Those have increased in price by 42% since we took over. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we tried various tactics such as shifting from hardbacks to paperbacks. More recently, this last year, we started leasing items. So rather than buying books that might be damaged or lost or may not last as long, we now lease a good portion of our adult fiction and nonfiction. This allows us to keep the collection current, and we basically send back once the items are no longer needed or popular. We send back those lease items and get new lease items, keeping that portion available and current. Again, that's just one of those other tools we try to implement in order to stretch the budget as much as we can to get as much value for our public as we can. I'll mention the digital dynamics. So digital access, as I said, has been a major challenge as far as our budget. So since I came on, we have canceled or have been priced out of quite a number of databases. There's been around 30,000 worth a lot of that has gone towards our children's collections, as we've seen before, our Spanish collections, and our popular adult collections. Hoopla at one time peaked at overspending around $50,000, which was, about a quarter of our total budget. We stopped that with the caps and the processes we put in place with the help of you, the board. But the reality is that demand for digital continues to grow. As we all know, we've probably all heard frustrations about Hoopla. Everybody always wants to have their books right away. We've been trying to make that happen in Overdrive Libby by providing more funding and more training to staff to make purchases on demand and to make more copies available on demand use, rather than just buying one copy, one user, which is another method that Overdrive does let us use. Overall, the summary of that is digital costs keep growing, and we've had to shift or cut those services in order to make sure that the most popular and core collections, even digital, continue to be used and accessible. For children's books, as you mentioned, it's one of our most popular collections collectively, so including all the different types of children's materials. These, like I said, get a lot of wear and tear, so they need to be replaced more frequently than some of our other items, which is why when we saw that percentage breakdown, what would it be the budget if we matched the amount of circulation? Children's books is one example. If we were matching how much people are actually checking those out and tie that to the budget, it'd be closer to 25,000, whereas at most we can allocate 13,000, 15,000, given our current limitations without drastically affecting one of the other collection budgets. Last but not least, our findings of what we would do if we were to get an increase of, just say, 50,000 per year. We would, of course, target those popular collections, right-size the youth and popular collections. We'd likely increase funding to Overdrive Libby and look to see whether we can do anything with Hoopla with your guidance. We might have some freedom to pilot specialized or special interest collections. Some of our other neighboring libraries circulate video games, which would be something I would be supportive of to get more of our teens and young adults coming to the library. We would, of course, have to adjust our collection policies with your guidance for that. We'd also want to expand our library things. Currently, we check out hiking kits, telescopes. Those have all been funded through grants from the state, which we anticipate not being as plentiful as they were in the past, given the current climate as far as grant funding to public institutions are right now. We would also like to investigate additions to our databases or digital resources. In the past, we had BrainFuse funded by the state. So this was an online tutoring and homework help service. We could not afford that without the state support. And the last quote was around $7,000 to $10,000 just for Escondido. Without, again, cutting drastically into one of the other budgets, that's not a service we can feasibly offer at this time. And last but not least, we have been in talks at the Sarah Cooperative level, so that's our cooperative of libraries serving the San Diego and Imperial County area, about being able to continue our Link Plus interlibrary loan service. Currently, the courier service that services all of us has increased in price quite a lot. At the administrative level, we are working to get those costs down, but at a minimum, we are looking at around a $10,000 increase in supporting Link Plus starting in fiscal year 2027. That would likely, as of right now, we try to absorb that as much as we can, but it is also something I wanted to bring to your attention as it does support a collection feature and service that is particularly popular here in Escondido. We're getting close to around, it's like 500 plus Link Plus per month, several thousand per year, which is much more than our traditional interlibrary loan service, which number is less than 5 a month. of course, risk for maintaining a flat budget. We'll continue to see growing gaps between demand and supply, accelerating replacement costs, digital equity pressures. So the cost, since we can't control the cost and the licensors, Hoopla, the publishers can dictate what the prices are to much more degree than physical materials, those can change drastically and on the whims of the publishers. So we have little control there. And of course, deferred innovation and customer dissatisfaction. So we want to be able to respond to the requests of the community as well as providing collections that reflect the interests. And so when we are limited with the budget, it does kind of fixes on what we can buy and without really drastically affecting another collection. So the choices we make are, do we buy more board books or do we buy more Spanish? Both are important, but we only have money for one. And so those are the levers we're pulling as an example. Any questions as far as my reports or any comments?
I have a few questions.
I have two, too.
Okay.
You want to go first? Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Reno. A lot of information. Love how you laid it out. Very easy to understand. I just have like a few basic questions. When is our LS&S contract up?
That is up in fiscal year 26-27.
What is it?
26-27.
Oh, 26-27.
It is actually up June 30th of 2026.
June 30, 2026. In your experience in LS&S, when you have a contract with the city, is it standard for the term of the contract not to have an increase in the collection budget? And I'm just wondering if the LS&S administration's used to being like budget wizards and figuring things out, or if we didn't get it right in the contract the first time.
I can't speak to other LS&S contracts. I'm only privy to the one here in Escondido. Essentially, each budget does decide what the minimum collection budget is, but we always leave it open for our clients, if they so choose, to either provide more, or we can always go back to negotiate, but we usually don't open up contracts very often. It really varies and depends on the client. In this case, it's the Escondido. Yes. Now,
Great,
we have
thank
a
you.
special guest here who would be able to better answer the question as far as LS&S is concerned.
Thank you.
The button. Hi, my name is, that's very loud. My name is Heidi Dollamore. I am the Vice President of Operations with Library Systems and Services. So I support all of the contracts that we operate across California. And the short and sweet answer is it varies a lot. There is not one standard approach. In some cases, it really depends on the desires of the local partner and the funding situation of the local partner. So there are some contracts where it is relatively flat. There are some contracts where there is a step increase every year. There are some contracts where there is a step increase maybe every third year. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can approach that. We also have some partners that view that area. Typically, we have our operational budget is separate, laid out separately in the contract from the collections budget. And we have less flexibility on the operations budget if there is an unexpected financial development. So if we have to make a short-term alteration to the operations budget, that translates into staff positions. Whereas the collections budget is something that is spent each year in real time, and it is not expended until we actually purchase and acquire the books. So some of our contracts view that with like a little bit of flexibility, and they approach that from a contingency perspective, right? Where they say, okay, we would like to spend this much if we have this much, but some contracts actually establish that collections budget on an annual basis based on their real-time budget for that fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Robert, the budget year is July 1st through June 30th?
Correct.
Okay. And then, when do contract negotiations begin if this contract expires less than a year from now?
That would be up to the city manager and the city attorney's office as to when we would start having that conversation.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm not up to speed on what the city is currently doing with the budget, because as of 2027, the library is no longer funded.
So currently, the library is funded through ARPA funds through June 30th of 2026. Following that period of time, they would be moved back into the general fund, and they would be funded in that way.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. And do we even have the option to, I guess, what is the standard procedure if we would like to request an increase in the library budget for collections?
I honestly am not sure what that procedure or process is. So that's something that I would need to look into for you and have that answer probably at the next meeting.
Okay, the contract specifically states $250 a year for the collection budget. And it allows, there's a separate budget for the operation of the library, which is primarily staff and some other things. And that has an escalation clause that I believe is 3% a year. Is that, it's if not exactly that, it's close.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the $4,000 a month, if you take the collection budget and escalate it to 2% a year from the start of the contract through now, you come out to $297,000. Hence $4,000 a month, which is $298,000. There's nothing, or has been nothing, to prevent the city from allocating more money to the collection budget. There's nothing to prevent them from doing that, other than hiding behind the contract, which is not. You can do that, but it's not germane. It's nothing prevents that from happening. Nothing prevents this board, which, reading from this history, in the past, back prior to 2017, both Friends and the Library Board gave money to the collection budget. I guess it varied from year to year, the average being $255,000. So when the city said, hey, in the new contract, we're going to do $250,000 collection budget, I'm assuming, even though I wasn't part of it then, that both Friends and the board said, oh, okay, then we won't have to anymore. And here we are, where we're just looking at, if you look at just 2% a year, we're $50,000 a year behind right now in less than 10 years. So, you know, should we just, let's wait until the contract's over and then ask to go and put in something that's more realistic, like $300,000 to $325,000, and add an escalation to that? Okay, or can we do something now, which is eminently possible by either the city or the board, to get to try to enable us to get back to at least where we were 8 years ago as far as funding and what we're able to do with it. So that's where we are. There's the possibility that the city is going to put this on the as an item on council in a couple of weeks. So if this board were to vote and motion to both city and the council, hey, you guys ought to give more money to the library, that might go a long way to pushing that thing along when it gets in front of council.
So then to clarify, it would be the increase prior to that contract ending?
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
There's nothing to prevent us from giving the trust fund money to this, although the process takes a couple of months. There's nothing to prevent the city manager from just taking other general fund money and giving it to LSNS to spend. There's nothing that prevents that.
Okay, so we're exploring potential different sources. Robert, and this may not be a question for you, because currently contract is funded or was funded via ARPA money, how would that look like if the city, for whatever reason, approved to increase the collection budget?
So the, any additional funding would come from the general fund, is the way that it would work. And it would not affect ARPA.
Right.
Yeah, because ARPA has already been accounted for, and so it would not affect it at all.
And as we all know, general fund money is now starting to see the last 3 or 4 months, give or take, the additional 1% in sales tax, which equates to somewhere between $30 and $40 million a year for the city, assuming we don't go into a recession or something like we did in 2008. And everybody and their brother is trying to go after the additional money that the city has now because it's been so austere for several years. So there's a lot of demand for to fix problems that have festered for a few years without any funds to address them. So the city is faced with that issue. But again, we've got a city with a budget of, is it 160 million? Okay, let's just say 150 million a year. 4% a month, I mean, they spill that much every week. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money. Francis, you had some questions.
Yeah, it really didn't have to do with this big picture stuff.
Oh, okay.
It was more drilled down into a specific app, but I don't want to take any momentum from where we're going with this.
Okay. So assuming everybody gets all their questions answered based upon Reno's presentation, I would like us to consider a motion to request that both the city and the city council find a way to give the library an extra $4,000 a month and then do a thorough review of where the collection budget should be when the contract's renewed and put it on an annual escalation.
I'm supportive of that. And I want to thank you, John, for digging deeper, some of the clarification. So does anyone else, I'm the newbie, and certainly could see that distinction made, and I've gotten a lot of clarity here with, obviously once LSNS came on board, it was the contractual minimum set. And so to John's point, or can anyone else enlighten me, that really at that point, Friends and the board's sort of designation or allocation of library trust fund just sort of, there's nothing that can preclude that from happening, but it really just fell off. It really just, in terms of
It apparently has been done quite often in the past.
Now, can I just add 2 comments? One, I'm happy to hear the support of the questions, but I do have to remind the board that the FF&E for the infrastructure project may be another big chunk. So I would caution any additional spending before the board has really thought through how we're going to fund, or if we're going to fund the FF&E for the infrastructure project. And my second note is, right now, while we're at the mall, I'm a little concerned about space as far as additional purchases. That doesn't mean we couldn't make room, but that is another concern that I want to kind of double check how many more items we would buy, et cetera, get to more of a comprehensive report of what it would look like. This did not include recommendations from staff, either myself or the city. It was essentially a report on the history, about the context, and let you know what has been the history to better inform your decision as far as collection support goes.
Well, I'm not advocating we vote on tapping the trust fund to give the library $4,000 a month right now. I'm advocating that we motion that we're to city council and city management, that we'd like to see them immediately increase it by $4,000 a month. And if that goes nowhere in the next month or so, then we could entertain taking it out of trust fund. And by then, we'll have a lot better idea in, let's say, 2 months, what we're spending on FF&E.
Thanks, Reno and John. You kind of started talking about one of the points I was going to make is what would that impact look like in the meantime during the temporary relocation, assuming that we will be at the mall until springtime, right? And I think I don't know that you would want to do a huge influx of book purchases during that time, right? One, storage, but two, transportation, because as we know, that's going to be a cost to transport back to the library. In terms of circulation, because we are in a period where the contract is set to end, and keeping in mind that you may not want to be purchasing $4,000 worth of books. Is there what would happen if the $4,000 monthly was approved but not expended? Is there a rollover process, or what would happen to those funds?
Sorry, can you restate that?
Yeah, let's say the city council or the board, approves a $4,000 a month, effective next month, and because of current temporary location, Reno's not able to use up all of those $40,000, $50,000. What happens comes June 30th, since we're kind of in this unknown?
Right. In general, with regard to general fund monies, anything that is not spent, it does go back into the general fund. So it is considered a surplus at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
So you could have spending that is average is $4,000 a month, and if you don't spend it all by the end of the year, it goes back.
Sorry, I was going to change the subject. Going back to Giselle, I'm not sure if you got enough clarification on your question, but it looks like during that time in 2018, 2019, the Friends of the Library just started or were supporting programs on their own without going through the budget, and so they put in direct requests with the director, and so it looks like it stopped tracking then. And also, it could have been a change in the library director around that time, and that director just didn't ask for trust funds to be used to support the collection budget. And I think that they've just been making do since then.
Since I got on the board, which I think was 2018 or 19, not sure, I've never heard of any requests to Friends or to the board specifically for collection budget.
And changing the subject again, I just want to make a point that I completely support asking the city to increase the budget. I think the timing is now, because I think that the community members should know these details, and that the collection budget hasn't been increased in several years because these community members voted on a tax increase. So we owe it to them to bring this to the city and ask on their behalf to increase the collection budget. Also, it doesn't mean that we need $50,000 today, and it doesn't mean that you need to spend $50,000 in the next couple months, but even if they approve the $50,000 and prorate it, and it would be nice for you to be able to purchase new items for when we move back in March.
I will add, one thing to also consider, it could be in lieu of or in addition to what you've already discussed, but several libraries will have a kind of refresh of the collection when we reopen. We kind of call it like a mini opening day collection. So that could be something if you'd like me to prepare what that would look like. I can work with our collections team and our vendors to say, let's say if we wanted to refresh for our grand opening and have brand new collection items, swap out, refresh,
That's an interesting idea. Well, I'd like to wait and see what we can get city and council to do in the next, by sometime in October and see. But that's an intriguing idea.
And another thought is, even based directly on your proposal, stabilizing on the digital access side. If, those funds, if we didn't have the space currently for physical materials, I do feel like it can help supplement and support that.
Right. Now I think we have some time for Francis's other specific question, because I have one too. So you talked about Link Plus, an additional $10,000 needing to be factored. If I'm looking at the circulation budget, where is that currently being attributed to? Because I don't see a line item for Link Plus. So what's the current cost?
Essentially, Link Plus is currently bundled under our operations budget as our contribution or part of our membership to the Sarah Library Cooperative. So that comes out of our operating funds currently.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, Sora, is it connected to the overdrive in the collections budget? Sora is like a kids app within that same company that owns Overdrive.
All the overdrive money is kind of contained within its own budget. So whatever we contribute to overdrive, we make purchases typically through, most of our circulation for overdrive is adults, but some of that money does get spent or is included in the collection that is all in one within either the cooperative purchases, the state purchases, and our purchases. Sora, I honestly haven't used it myself. So I have to look for more information to tell you exactly how Sora is impacted.
For context on why I asked that, my 5-year-old's in the Escondido School District. Fifth grader is in the Escondido School District and has a tablet, and Sora's on that tablet, and they use it quite frequently. So I don't know if that means that Sora is being paid for by, obviously, the school district, but just wanted to throw that out there, that kids are using a popular app through their school tablets.
Just shared with me that Sora is specific to schools.
Okay.
Sorry, in some cases, it can be funded by the public library as a way to support the partnership, but it doesn't sound like we have that, it doesn't sound like we have that currently in place in Escondido, but again, that would be something that we could explore expanding and enhancing with either additional funds or with a redistribution or analysis of our current budget.
Yeah, and I asked as well just to see if there was overlap between Sora's availability with the library and then also the school district. I don't know what the right answer is. I just wanted to raise that it's available for school.
Yeah, I'll certainly look into it more.
Okay, and so I see that the staff action on that is you'd like some board direction. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so is this something?
Well,
motion
I'd like to
pass?
make a motion that that the library board strongly encourages the city of Escondido and the city council to increase the library's collection funding by $4,000 a month as soon as possible.
I'll second.
And open the voting.
It's approved 5-0.
Sorry, and just to clarify, so is this something that we have to make an action item to put before the city council?
This is new to me, so I'm definitely going to have to reach out to the city manager's office to find out what our next steps are.
Okay,
So,
appreciate
but
that.
as soon as I find that out, I will definitely distribute that information to the Library Board of
Is
Trustees.
the new Citizens Committee like oversight
No,
connected to the
I'm
general
just,
fund?
I'm not familiar with this type of a request from the board that is more informal, that you're making a formal request and what that looks like, because it's not necessarily attached to or tied to a specific like budget item, like the FF&E unfunded ones that you're pulling from your trust and saying, I need you to approve this. And so that would then formally go to the board. So I've got to figure out what that process looks like. I'm unfamiliar with it, but I will reach out, and as soon as I know, I will definitely share that with this board.
Okay, well, if you need a letter from the board, we can do that. I did one of those in 2019, and just took the letter around that we'd all agreed was okay, and had everybody sign it and turn it into the city manager.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then-
Whatever's necessary.
Also, Maribel, can we designate if this does go before city council before the next time we meet? We can just establish now who on the board would be represented, and then I think that Reno's presentation and him being included is necessary.
So if this goes before their October, okay.
So like who on the board would want to represent the board? Is that John or Maribel? I suggest one of you two. Or both?
I think it'd be great if both of us did it.
Yeah, both.
I agree.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Reno, for providing all that information for us. Next, we'll move on to the statistics report. And that is Reno again.
I'll keep this brief. I think the main takeaways from this month's stats is just to see the trend of us getting back into the flow of things, back to normal essentially, even though we're at the mall. So I can see the trend here as far as circulation. It has been going back up closer to where we were before we switched to the mall. So again, May and June, we saw lower numbers than as usual as people were still learning where we were. But in July, again, also affected by the popularity of summer reading, our physical materials have increased. Digital stays about the same as is normal. I'll also highlight the library visits. So we can see here that in May, those are mostly the ones from the Pioneer Room while we were closed. June saw an increase around 1,000 as we sort of know where we were at the mall. And now in July, we reached 24,000. And that trend is similar in August. I haven't looked at stats since I prepared my report, but it's trending similarly. We're above 20,000. So we're passing the average number of visits that we had at the main library. So on average, last fiscal year, it was around 20,000. So we're on the right trajectory as far as visits at the mall. Again, the data is a little skewed because it was the summer months. And that is usually when we see the biggest spike in people visiting the library due to summer break, summer reading challenge, all that. So we have to keep that in mind as we look at the numbers. We'll have better data as we go through August and especially September, now that everybody's back at school, to get you a better idea of what those numbers are. But anecdotally, visits have continued strong. People are excited, and that's reflected in the numbers we're seeing here. Same with our programs. As you can see, we're slowly getting back up to our average, around 200 programs a month. And we have the attendance reflective of that. The Pioneer Room, you'll see, is in red because the door counter malfunctioned during the month of July. So that is an estimate while I try to get that door count corrected. But it's based on what the trend we're seeing before it broke down. Any questions on the stats?
Real quick, with the total registered borrowers, 97,524, is that the highest that's ever been in library history? Or?
Yes, it is. We have to keep in mind also that the rate of clearing out the old ones is not immediate. So every 3 years is when the library cards expire, and we should get cleared out of the system. But essentially, that number is being spread received by the number of new library cards. So right now, we're averaging around 1,000 new library cards a month. So that's very good.
Yeah, anecdotally, I'm hearing lots about the mall and people's satisfaction with it. And it just, I don't know if the numbers I'm seeing here are reflective of that.
I will mention just today, Aspen, who most of you have met, our operations manager, asked if she could find more library cards because we were close to running out, and we had just bought some when we moved to the mall. So we have gone through quite a bit of new library cards since being at the mall.
Yeah, so there's positive momentum. That's,
Correct.
yeah.
Thanks, Rena. I really appreciate you providing these every month. Rather than me going through many, many agenda packets, is there a way for me to see the statistics report for multiple months and maybe year over year that I can look into?
Get that to you on the board. I have those all. It's just mostly for space purposes on
Yes.
packets that we limited to the last couple of months. But I have the data going back many years. If at any time you want a specific subset of, say, last year and this year, or even going farther back, it's just with the older data, I'll caution that some of the older ones might have counted things slightly different.
Okay.
On certain metrics. So, for example, for some years they weren't counting programs provided by Literacy and Pioneer Room, which we do now count.
Okay.
So that's something when you're looking at older data, or maybe I was supervising, I can't guarantee that it's a like for like. It's going to be more of a close match.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll probably work with you to get, because I want to look at a couple of different numbers, especially if we're going to be asking the council for additional money. I vaguely remember in a prior meeting, did we talk about potentially adding stats regarding our digital services on here? Would that be possible regarding like Hoopla, Libby? Just again, especially now that we're very definitely post-internet, right? We're in the era. I think being able to track some of that month over month will be helpful, and especially right now that we are in a temporary location.
Absolutely. What you see here is bundle of digital materials. That's all the digital checkouts. But I have that, when I make these reports, I have it broken down by each of our vendors. So Hoopla, Overdrive, all the other ones. Hoopla, Overdrive is the majority. But I can certainly include at least Hoopla and Overdrive as a breakdown, so you can see those. And anything else you might want, I can get that. So as a reminder, at any point, board is welcome to reach out if you want any data in particular, or if you want a report. I'm happy to do that. It might sometimes take a little bit of time to get that ready for you.
Yeah, and is there a database that we would have access to? I know, I don't know if any of the data is like de-identified or anything.
I can look into, I believe at one point we considered being able to provide you access to our library IT platform, and that might be something I can investigate more.
Okay, yeah, because I definitely don't want the chunk of your time trying to make reports for us. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have questions? Thank you. We will move on. Such a big agenda packet this time. We will move on to the director's report. Rita.
I will keep this brief since we've all been here quite a while today. We have some good news at the mall. So the 2 library book drops have been installed. The drive-up book drop, which we see photoed on the right, that one is operational starting this last Monday. The walk-up one has found some technical difficulties, and we're working with the manufacturer to fix it. The current problem is we can open the door very easily to retrieve the items, but then closing the door, it is getting stuck on part of there's an old overhang. So we're working with the manufacturer on how they would recommend we fix that. Otherwise, staff are going to have to force it, and we're afraid of damaging the book drop and then voiding the warranty. So that's why the walk-up one isn't active right now. But we have seen already some positive news of the drive-up one. I saw a mom's group mention that they're very happy to see that, making their lives easier. Also mentioned that in partnership with the City of Escondido's Urban Forestry Management Plan, if you've been to the mall, you'll see a few planters in front of the library spaces where there's trees. these are part of a program and project to field survey results from the public as far as what they want in tree planting across Escondido. And part of that is a component where if they want, the public can come into the library, fill out a little bookmark tag with wishes or whatever thoughts they have regarding trees or what have you, to then put on the trees at the mall. So it's a nice community building activity. But we're really happy to support and partner the treeification of Escondido and the replanting, whatever we can. And this is going from August through early summer of next year. It's been extended, so we're happy to partner with the forest management plan to provide this. And I won't go into all the highlights. I will mention that, again, Pioneer Room is looking for volunteers and people of interest that have oral histories that they'd like to contribute to our Latinos in Escondido Oral History Project. Those who participate can do so in English and in Spanish. This is a partnership between the Pioneer Room and the Escondido Historical Society and Museum and Center, I should say. For adult programs, we had a brand new program. It was a jigsaw puzzle speed run competition at the mall. It was booked fully, so we had 5 teams. They all competed, and we had a diverse group of ages and backgrounds represented on the team, so I was very happy to see that. And last but not least, I do encourage you to look through the stats for our Summer Reading Challenge. So this is our summer reading program we have every year. This year, it was a bit more of a streamlined and simplified program because we had to get it running midway through the move to the mall. So you'll see reflected in that the numbers of participants were a little bit down this year, but we believe that's basically due to the move and then the late starting, promoting, getting those kids and adults back. But I was very happy to see the adult participation went up as compared to last year. So certain demographics found it easier at the mall. And that's it for my report.
Reno, is there an update on the chess club?
We do have an update. Our volunteer who used to run the chess club was unable to move or make it down to the mall. So that did push us back on getting the chess club started again. We're right now, staff are looking for a backup or alternative chess mentor for the kids and adults that attend the chess club. If we cannot find one, we would like to have one because part of it is teaching and mentoring during the chess club. We'll likely have a staff member just be at the chess club, but it won't be the same level. So that's why we're really pushing to find a chess mentor, somebody that knows how to teach chess, to help keep that going in the same way and same level as we had before.
Have you done any community outreach on that?
I believe so. I believe staff are looking into local chess clubs. I believe there's one in North San Diego that we're reaching out to see if any of them can volunteer and work their way. We're also even considering asking our friends to help support an honor room or some sort of fee to offset the cost of any volunteer or mentor for the program. So we are continuing to explore. We know it's valued and appreciated. It's just we unfortunately cannot retain the same lead volunteer that was handling it for the past few years.
Was that because the lead volunteer couldn't get to the mall?
Correct. I think the drive was too much or something along those lines.
Is the Pioneer Room like a fallback for event space, or?
We can investigate that. I believe our goal has been to get as many of the programs at the mall as possible.
Yeah.
Just to not confuse the public as to where the library is, which is why we resisted the Pioneer. It's more of a last option at this point.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Have you, I think for the chess mentor, are you trying to have them meet any particular qualifications or perhaps a call for a chess mentor on social media might be helpful? That way others can share it on their pages. And if someone were to step forward, do they need to go through a volunteer process with the city? Okay.
Yes, and in most cases, unless it's like a one-off paid presenter, we do require ongoing volunteers to go through the same standard background
Okay, so if there is like a social media post for that call, I think it'd be great to include those details in the description.
On the programming and the marketing front, I think that you all did a good job with marketing the speedrun jigsaw puzzle competition, because I did see it a few times just on social media and didn't get to attend that particular one. So I was curious of when the next speedrun jigsaw puzzle competition was.
I don't know when the next one is, but typically if we find success in a program, we repeat it. And this one was successful, so we'll be asking our adult services team to prepare for another one. I just don't have a date right now.
Okay, sounds good. I'll be just watching on social media because you all did a good job that first go around. And then I did just want to compliment on the drop boxes as well, that I think they're easy to find and use, minus this current kind of the mishap on the on that other walk-up one. But yeah, they're very visible and I think located in good spots. And my son pretends at home that we have a drop box because he just liked it so much. So.
Great. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the trustee library use report. Who would like to start? Virginia, I'll pick on you because you've always gone last.
Sounds good. Okay, I received a gift a few years ago, and it was abandoned areas in San Diego by a local author. And my husband bought it for me because I love everything San Diego. And then that was at least 2 to 3 years ago. And then I saw on social media that they were having the author of this book at the Pioneer Room. So I was so excited that she was going to be in Escondido. And so that was a really good find. And so I took my book, I went to her book reading, and she signed it. So that was such a thrill for me because that was a book that I've had in my possession for a few years. That means a lot to me. So I highly recommend you guys trying that out because she shows you abandoned spots. Like, I didn't know there was an unfinished castle right at Lake Wolford that you could go hike to that has a throne there that never finished. So the castle's not done, but the throne is there, and it just looks over the lake. So, I mean, there's a lot of cool spots to explore with your family, so highly recommend you checking it out. So thank you to whoever had that brilliant idea to bring that author. It was a lot of fun, and it brought at least 30 to 40 people. So, like, they had to bring more chairs out. So, great job.
Well, mine's not quite as exciting as an abandoned castle. I've been going in every couple of weeks to get the parks pass, and then I get it renewed. It's nice to go to the beach and not pay for parking and not be crowded. But anyway, I was waiting for I always want to make sure they've got my parks pass back. So I want to physically hand it to somebody. And the librarian was handling, somebody wanted a book that wasn't at the library. And while he was talking to the guy, he was looking up on the screen on Link Plus, and in about 20 seconds or less, he said, "Yeah, that's available. We can get it for you. It'll be here in 3 or 4 days, and we'll let you know." And so the fact that could be done so seamlessly, by the librarian in less than a minute, I thought that was pretty cool.
I've been chatting with some folks at work about the relocation of the library, and I mentioned that there are DVDs there. And so they were stoked. And they went, and that back corner area, like it felt like walking into a Blockbuster. So that was pretty exciting. And I also ventured into the Friends of the Light bookstore a couple weeks ago, and I saw that they had Xbox games. Granted, my husband schooled me. They were really old games, so it wasn't that exciting of a find. But I thought it was pretty exciting. That was pretty exciting, and I posted that on my social media. I missed out on the color matching activity for adults, so I hope that one comes back.
So as mentioned, utilizing the Dropbox, that was great. Personally, just checked out a few things on Libby and look forward to attending some future programming. Yeah.
Yeah, similar. Family went to the library a couple times. I was so excited after the last meeting to see the drop-off. I went and drove around and then was like, well, maybe it's not even up yet, and it wasn't. So thank you for confirming earlier that it was just put up last week. But already hearing just from my neighborhood at least and people within it that they are appreciating the new mall location. And then also heard from another person that's excited about the mall eventually. Or I should say, they read something online about a satellite location that was mentioned. So people have read that and relayed that back to me. So.
All right, I think that's everything for today. We can adjourn this meeting.